So why does this matter to you? Who cares if a few skinny jeans wearing, Europeans get tossed around by big government, right? Because this is a global shark bump, because we are all in this one together. We're just the last in the boat, but we are the biggest fish that will come into the boat. Let me start here. The radicals in our own government are very interested observers, watching very closely how the people of Europe respond to this Cyprus offer. What are they going to do? What can the politicians do better next time? Cyprus is a teachable moment for all of the people that want to grab control of power. But it is also a teachable moment for us if we will just see it that way. It will explain a ton. I think I asked you yesterday about guns. Has anybody asked why they're limiting guns? Has anybody thought of that? Why are we limiting guns? And I told you last night it was Cyprus. But there's another thing. At the same time they're limiting guns, they've got soda too that they're limiting. And those things make sense, right? They're limiting cigarettes, soda, trans fats, SUVs. That makes sense. These two make sense together. But then this one doesn't. At the same time, they want you to be able to smoke pot. All the pot you want, apparently. We showed you Mike Bloomberg yesterday, and he is going after everything, except, watch this video, except for pot.
Commissioner Kelly and I support Governor Cuomo's proposal to make possession of small amounts of marijuana a violation rather than a misdemeanor. And we'll work to help him pass it this year. But I'll tell you, we aren't going to wait for that to happen. Right now, those arrested for possessing small amounts of marijuana are often held in custody overnight. We're changing that. Effective next month, anyone presenting an ID and clearing a warrant check...
He's got to go today. He's going in after cigarettes. He's got to go in after soda. He's got to do these things. But he thinks it's a waste of time to go after pot. Isn't that a health risk? If you believe that soda is a health risk, how is smoking pot? I don't care about, let's say, the intoxication, the lungs, what it's doing. He has to move cigarettes out of the way, but pot isn't a problem. Well, maybe it's because we couldn't afford it. Because that's kind of what the president said yesterday. The president has said, we have bigger fish to fry than going after pot smokers. Watch.
As it is, the federal government has a lot to do when it comes to criminal prosecutions. It does not make sense from a prioritization point of view for us to focus on recreational drug users in a state that has already said that under state law that's legal.
This puts us into a constitutional crisis, and you would think a man who is a constitutional professor would know that. Now think of this. Let's take him at his word. We have to prioritize things. So the man who made a big deal over free condoms at colleges, a man who spent his time lobbying to change the college football playoff system, doesn't have the time to keep us out of a constitutional crisis. But don't get lost there. These two match. These three do not. Why is it these champions of manufacturing only healthy choices are not willing, they're in favor of legalizing pot? Let me get back to this here in a second. And let me go over here. Why are progressives trying so hard, over here, trying to take away your guns? Here and internationally. See, this is not about Sandy Hook, because in international terms, Sandy Hook was no big deal. We know why we're supposedly going through is because of the shooter in Sandy Hook. But why is the UN Arms Treaty being pushed right now and going through? They're working on it right now. And then, why is the administration pushing so hard behind the scenes to absolutely, totally control your child's education? the curriculum and every piece of access you as a parent have via Common Core. And in that educational system, they are teaching you about this. Through here, they're teaching you irrational fear of guns, a disdain for the Western way of life, how bad this is. But that one is popular still. Why is Michael Bloomberg, the mayor of New York City, injecting himself into a school board issue, as we told you last night, in New Orleans? This man is worried about who is elected to the Board of Education in New Orleans. He spent money on that race. When today we find out that 80% of those who graduate from high school in New York City are incapable of reading or writing or doing enough arithmetic to gain entrance to any level college, 80%. You would think if they don't have time to bust the drug users, that he wouldn't have time to worry about cigarettes under the counter or education in another state. The answer, again, found in Cyprus. You see, before a strong arm, a strong man, or totalitarian government can grab power, they have to try to make people really, really want it. You have to train the citizens to think that their best friend is government. To cement that idea in place for all time, you have to teach kids to distrust their parents and instead make government their mom and dad. Remember this?
There are some things about our world that you know that older people don't know.
Got it? Strip away the authority of mom and dad, and this has been done for years. Give kids the green light to whatever they want. Oh, I mean, you can't have a soda, you can't have chips, you can't talk about God. But there are condoms and abortion pills in the vending machine in the hallway. And the health teacher is demonstrating the healthy ways for teenagers to engage in sexual promiscuity. This isn't making sense, is it? We also have to cut mom and dad off from viewing the curriculum at all. And then we're going to call it Common Core, meaning the core of who we are that is common. The common core of their worldview comes now from school and radicals, not those old people like mom and dad who, I mean, you just know better than they do. And then they have a curriculum that teaches how bad the Western way of life is and the free market is, especially if you're just a greedy capitalist like Michael Bloomberg or George Soros. This is, If you're just a greedy capitalist, that's bad in the curriculum, but there is a better way, working for everybody in a communist utopia, and that's darn near exact from the textbook. And then at the same time, you have to teach an irrational fear of guns. Not a fear of guns, but an irrational fear of guns. You make kids afraid of assault Pop-Tarts and pieces of scrap paper shaped like an L. And you call the police on that. Now here's the latest example. I want to show you a picture. This was posted. I saw this picture and New Yorkers would say, oh, he's in camouflage with a gun. I saw that picture and I said, look at the way he's holding the gun. This kid's been well trained. It is unnatural for a kid to grab onto a gun, for anybody, to grab onto a gun without putting their finger in with a trigger. You have to be trained to hold a gun like that. This kid has been well schooled, most likely from his parents. Well, according to his dad, merely posting this picture prompted an unannounced visit from the New Jersey Department of Youth, who were accompanied by police officers. The police officers did not have a warrant. They demanded entry into this home and access to the firearms. Dad said, you don't have a warrant, beat it. I personally don't think this is the end of this story. I instructed The Blaze today to make sure they're on top of it and inform the family that if anything happens in the future, to know that they have a friend in The Blaze. We will bring you up to speed. We will be a watchdog. But you have to understand, you are no longer mom and dad. The government is now the new mom and dad. But your new mom and dad is dangerous. How? Let me take you back to Cyprus, because remember, they're ahead on this timeline. Since the bailout offer has now been rejected, okay, the idea was, hey, we're gonna prop up the banks that have been screwing all of us. We're gonna prop up the banks by taking 10% of 6 to 10% of everybody's savings, or we're all gonna die. Oh, wow. So they said, no, we're not going to do that. Now, there is another offer on the table. Russia has an offer on the table, and they said, hey, look, Cyprus, we'll pay for your bailout. You just let us explore in your water for oil or gas. But my guess is the dysfunctional mom and dad will not want a capitalist way out of this. They will not want to solve this problem. They need this problem. In fact, they've just made it worse. It's great, you lost 10%, but now your banks are going to fail, so you're going to feel the immediate pain, and the message of control is more important than a solution to the problem. With this vote, their banks will fail and the country will be in chaos, but mom and dad will be happy behind closed doors, because mom and dad will tell you, we told you so. And the chaos will cause the children to look, Mom, Dad, come help. It's what's happening right now in a small way with our Easter egg hunts and our White House tours. Why do you think he's cutting the Easter? They had a St. Patty's Day party, but they're cutting the Easter egg hunt. Why? To irritate you. I mean, if they think that we're going to rise up over an Easter egg hunt and say, oh, no, enough. But that's what's happening. The Easter egg hunt and the White House tours, that's this Cyprus scenario, but Cyprus is at DEFCON 1. That's why you must educate yourself, and it is why they are not educating, but indoctrinating. You have to indoctrinate to be able to control. But then you have to disarm. You have to disarm the adults. Because when you come after their life savings, their blood, sweat, and tears, their entire life, you better reduce the odds for a successful civilian uprising. You have to train them, you have to train them, and you have to take their guns away. Limit the guns. I mean, you can't have a bunch of guns, right? You limit the success of an uprising. Limit it, but you need the uprising. Because you have the uprising allows the strongman to gain control. Look to Egypt for the prime example of this. By the way, in Cyprus, private citizens, we just looked this up about an hour ago, completely forbidden from owning handguns and rifles in any category and any caliber. They only are allowed to have shotguns, and those require a license, and they're limited to 2 rounds. Joe Biden would fit right in. So let's go back to drugs, because drugs and soda and guns doesn't make sense unless you know history. The Weimar Republic, notorious for having extremely lenient drug laws. They infiltrated, discredited religion, and then they promoted reckless partying and promiscuity and drug use. People would get sauced up, they'd forget their problems in sex, booze, or a bong. See, this is what stuck out to me. It's interesting, progressives will go after a 16-ounce soda, but not pot. I mean, I understand if you're a libertarian, you might be for legalizing drugs because you think the drug war doesn't work, and you think that, you know, there's no necessarily inherent value in you taking the drug, but you believe you should have the right because they're not your parent. You are. You control. Maximum freedom, maximum liberty. I get that. But progressives typically don't believe that, or you'd be allowed to have ho-hos and a soda. Why would Soros favor lenient drug laws? Cyprus is the answer. Before government can come for your life savings, you've got to limit the guns. But if they're going to take everything that you've worked for in your entire life, I mean, you got to have a getaway car, you know? You have to have an escape car for the progressives, for the totalitarians. You have to be able to control the citizens. And you need to have them just a little blurry-eyed so you can get away fast. It's Ocean's 11 times 16 trillion. Here's what makes, I think, The Blaze unique. Have you seen anybody put these facts together like this at all on the air? At all? Are you hearing anybody talking about why guns and soda and drugs and education? And what does Cyprus really mean? The most important move on guns in the history of the world, a move that would guarantee the world would fall into the hands of thieves, technocrats, and dictators, is afoot right now. And our government knows it, and our press knows it, and it's happening in New York City right now. And I believe we're the only network talking about it. And I'll show it to you and finish this picture when we come back.